If you make $50 a month on any property that you have, you are doing great. We never would have dreamed that we would become real estate investors. Never. We were living in a mobile home. There was a school bus that was skirted that somebody was living in. And we're like, are we ever going to afford a house? And when I was about 8 months pregnant, my husband came to me and said, one of my employees approached me about a property that they're selling. And would we be interested in buying it? And I said, first of all, we have a 2-year-old and I'm 8 months pregnant. And are you out of your mind? So we did. We were out of our mind.
What if you could stop chasing weekend guests and start earning consistent income 1 month at a time? I'm Vivian Yip, host, investor, and founder of Crew Homes and the Hestia certification. I believe there's a better way to build wealth through real estate. Welcome to the Midterm Rental Movement podcast, where I sit down with real hosts from all walks of life who are building real wealth with furnished rentals without burning out. You'll hear how they got started, where they invest, and how they've made the shift from Airbnb stress to sustainable, scalable income. Whether you're a short-term rental host tired of cleaning every weekend, or a busy professional looking for a smarter stream of income, this podcast is your blueprint. Ready to join the movement? Subscribe now, and if you've already have a great fully furnished home, list it for free at crewhomes.com. That's CRUhomes.com. Because real freedom starts with real income 1 month at a time. This is why the pros don't rely on Airbnb alone. If you're still only using Airbnb or VRBO without any software connected, you are putting your entire business at risk, especially if you're hosting extended stays, because at that point, you're not just offering vacation rentals anymore. You could be creating tenancy issues without even knowing it. And if you're not collecting signatures on your innkeeper agreement, you are wide open. That's why I use API connected software like Journey. It automates everything from messaging and calendar sync to the check-in process, deposits, and yes, even getting that innkeeper agreement signed automatically before every guest arrives. My cleaners get scheduled without me lifting a finger. Guests check in, pay, sign, and get support, all without me being glued to my phone. Use my link below to get your free demo appointment with Journey. And if you use my link, you'll get access to a special insider program with no onboarding fees, no property listing minimums, just simple automation that protects your business and saves your sanity. Go pro, go automated. Click the link and schedule your demo now. Hey everyone, today we've got Jan Bloom here today. She calls herself the side hustle queen. She owns multiple properties in Cheyenne as well as the Black Hills. And today she's going to be sharing with us her words of wisdom, and she's been investing since 2006. So Jan, thank you so much for being a part of our show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Tell me more about you and your husband, and then how you guys decided or found out more about the midterm rental movement.
Okay. So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but my husband and I met in college at the University of Wyoming when we were 19. So we got married when we were 25, and we did not actually have children for many years, not by choice, just because it just didn't happen. So we decided to, instead of kind of mope around, we decided to fill our lives. So we did a lot of traveling and a lot of other interesting things before we had children, and then we had children and lives changed. But how we started in real estate was we had both been very set in our careers. I was traveling a lot for a long time, and my husband had a position that had a lot of responsibility. And in 2004, we had our son who just turned 21, and we thought he was going to be it. We thought, okay, there's only one kid in our future. So at the time, we had a computer consulting business because my husband's background is IT. And so we had that. And then we had our son. And eventually what happened was we're pretty pragmatic people. And we're like, hey, we're both working full time. I was working on my master's, and we had our computer consulting business. Things were going really well. My husband's like, hey, we need another tax deduction. So we decided to build a home. So in the midst of building our home, we put the first home that we purchased in Cheyenne, Wyoming on the market. Well, that was 2006, and that's when the market started to tank. So in the midst of all of this, our house it wasn't selling. So we decided to rent it. So we became accidental landlords because we're like, we don't want two mortgage payments. So we'll have them make one and we'll make the other. Well, in the midst of building the home that we thought was our dreams, which later ended up not being, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. So it just, again, we had no expectation of any of this. We thought we were going to move into the house that we were building. We did not end up moving into that house. The builder declared bankruptcy before we could move in. So we basically lived in our camper. When I was 6 months pregnant, we had no running water. We had electricity. We were hooked up to some friend's house. And so I had a 2-year-old in a 200 square foot camper, 6 months pregnant with no plumbing and had no house. So we decided to look for another house because our lender said, you absolutely cannot move into that house. There are liens on that property. And so we had to go look for another house. And in the midst of all this, my brother also got married. So we had a trip to Texas in there. So anyway, needless to say, we did not go into the real estate world intentionally, with intention at all. It was totally accidental. And then when I was about 8 months pregnant, my husband came to me and said, one of my employees approached me about a property that they're selling and would we be interested in buying it? And I said, first of all, we have a 2-year-old. Well, he was 3 at the time then. And I'm 8 months pregnant. And are you out of your mind? So we did. We were out of our mind. And that proceeded to be the beginning of the purchase of many properties in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We still own most of them. But in 2012, with some career moves, and Vivian, I totally relate to what you're talking about, where you come to a point in your life, you go, is this really what it's supposed to be? I don't want to do this. And we literally packed up our kids. We had all of our properties, long-term rentals. The house that we lived in, which I would classify as an executive home, we rented out. And we moved to the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is where we live now. So my daughter started as a kindergartner. She just graduated from high school. And so our lives have been like nothing I could have ever imagined. But since we've been in the Black Hills, we've purchased some other properties. We have a couple properties here in the Black Hills. And we also have a property in Iowa that my son lives in. He goes to college at a private college in Iowa and plays baseball there. So we decided, what the heck, we're already in it. Let's just do it. So that's really, it's been really interesting. We literally got into the short-term rental aspect in 2022, but the midterm rental, I knew it by another name for years ago. Both of my parents were nurses, and my dad retired when he was 50 years old, and he wasn't ready to be retired. He went back to college, got a couple of degrees, and after I had my son, he just kind of didn't know what to do with himself. And I said, Dad, why don't you apply for one of these traveling nurse positions? And he did. And that began a 16-year situation for my parents. As I said, both my parents were nurses. My mom continued to work at the local VA where they live. And my dad did 13-week assignments in Alaska. And that was where I was introduced to midterm rentals, is because of the 13-week assignments.
What was it called before midterm rentals?
You
And
know,
if you don't mind.
they just called it nursing assignment housing.
Mm.
So we thought when we were kind of digging into this new realm that we would see a lot of doctors, because I come from the healthcare arena. So locum tenens were something we worked a lot with in hospitals, nurses. I thought for sure we'd done some clinical housing for people who were like ophthalmologists or psychologists in local healthcare arenas. But I thought for sure all of our housing would be nothing but doctors and nurses. And in all the years that we have had, I can recall one nurse assignment, and it was so unexpected. So we started out long-term rentals. 2020 kind of changed that for us. I live in a state where there was no eviction moratorium. You live in a place, you pay your rent. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. But things started getting weird. And we just said, we're not going to deal with all this drama. We're not going to deal with this long-term relationship with people that turns toxic. So that's when we started looking at short-term rentals. Well, I know that everybody can relate to this, and you mentioned it in earlier, is cleaning has been a nightmare. We live 300 miles away from most of our rentals. In this area, we live in the Rocky Mountain West. When I say it's 5 hours, that's on a good day of travel. it could be 10 to 12 hours of travel one way if the roads are bad. So I have to have a reliable cleaner or I'm going to be on the road for a very long time. So that kind of turned us away from the short-term rental area.
Wait, how long did you last in the short-term rental strategy?
Well, we're still doing it, but kind of involuntarily because we're in the process right now of we're wanting to get rid of some of our properties because we're wanting to go into more of a commercial space where we want to do more like midterm. I still have in Cheyenne, I have 3 long-term rentals and then 3 short-term rentals, but those short-term rentals, 3 short-term rentals are more midterm rentals at this point. Like very few of my properties that are short-term rentals do I rent like 2 days. Now they're longer. So what's happening in Cheyenne is there are some very large visible projects. One being a Microsoft data center. It was built, there was one built several years ago. They're building another one, but the big one in Cheyenne, the big news is Meta, Google is building a monstrous data center. And so they have broken ground. They are in the process of building, but they're also building a massive solar farm to support the power needs of that data center.
I don't know a ton about data centers. Does data centers mean it's just hardware that's running data? Like, what is it? It's not going to bring a whole bunch of people to town.
No, what they're bringing right now is tradespeople, the electricians, the solar technicians. It's anything related to the infrastructure of the operation of the data center. There will eventually be staff that will be there, but it's not going to be the magnitude of what they're doing right now.
Okay, so if someone wanted to invest in midterm rentals or housing to support this project, it would just be a temporary thing, right? It wouldn't be for the
No.
duration of the entire project.
Well, so Cheyenne is 10 miles from the Colorado border. So Cheyenne has basically blended into Colorado in terms of distance. Fort Collins, Colorado is about 30 miles away, 100 miles to Denver. There are a lot of people that commute because Wyoming, there's no state income tax. So it's very appealing to a lot of people. However, if you work in Colorado, you're still obviously going to have to pay state income tax. But the other thing that is happening, and this is really directly related to what's going on in our world, is we have a very large, active Air Force base in Cheyenne. And on that Air Force base are currently the Minuteman missiles, Minuteman Missile 3. And so they're upgrading to the Sentinel missiles. It's a lot of military mumbo jumbo I'm not going to get into, but that is a very active place. And I am continually, the housing office is continually sending people to me. The problem is those airmen typically have a very limited budget. And so when they're saying, I could pay $1,200 a month, I'm like, good luck with that. I don't
Are
know where
they
you're going to
not
find
going
that.
according to GSA rates?
They do, but it's also by rank. So if you have, and most of these guys are enlisted, guys and gals. So there is a lot of people that cycle through that base. So you've got number one, it's state government. So you have a lot of people, a lot of consultants that come in because Cheyenne is the state capital. So we have a large number of people who stay for months on end, but they're not necessarily going to live in Cheyenne forever. So by nature, midterm rental is great. I do have a state senator who stayed with me for the last couple of years over the legislative session, and they love staying with us. But we're kind of like, we kind of want to get out of it. Our kids are now adults, and we're looking for something different. So the midterm rental space for me is perfect because number one, long-term rental, I just don't get the money that I do. Short-term rental, I get great money, but then you risk vacancies when you get midday or midweek, for example. But also the cleaning, that's just nonstop. It never ends. So midterm for me is that sweet spot. And like I said, my introduction was when my parents were doing travel nursing assignments. They came when I had my daughter. They came to Cheyenne, and my dad worked a nursing assignment, and they were able to get their housing for free while they visited us.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. And so that was really my introduction. So I am 100% sold on the midterm rental scene because I've done all of them, and that's my favorite.
I'm with you because when you think about, and I have long-term rentals as well. The part about long-term rentals that drives me crazy is because my cash flow on my long-term rentals, I think I started at like $75 a month cash flow.
Yep.
Now I'm in a much better place because I bought early enough. I refinanced it, I bought early enough, rent's gone up. It's okay. I think I cash flow about $500 a month now on one of the long-term rentals, which is great. But the biggest problem for me is when the tenant moves out.
Yes.
When the tenant moves out, you're guaranteed 1,000, maybe $2,000 in repairs to get that
Mhm.
back to the market value that you want to be able to collect. And the beauty about midterm rentals is you're doubling your cash flow in most cases, or sorry, doubling long-term rent
Mhm.
for providing utilities and hospitality. And on top of that, your property gets delivered back to you in such great condition.
Yes, I agree. And the other thing is that really hurts me. And every time, I mean, we just had today, I had 3 short-term rentals that I had to do reviews on. And, there's no, that you roll the dice every time. You could have a really great, you think this is great. I'm going to get a 5 star out of it. We got one today. Everything was 5. We had a 5, like 4 4s and a 2 for value. But yet the person never gave us any indication that there was an issue. And
That
so,
happened to me recently. We got a 2 for value, but they paid $100 a night.
yes,
It's
yes,
always the cheapest people that have the highest champagne taste.
absolutely. And it's
It's all
to
part of the
me,
game.
yeah, and that's really for me as a person, as a professional, as a person who really we take pride in our properties. We don't have junk. We spend money to improve them. We want people to be comfortable. To me, that's a slap in the face, and I don't do well with that. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, what do you mean? And so for me, like I said, the midterm rental space I love, because of the fact that number one, you're creating some kind of a relationship. It's not a 2 day I don't know
Huh.
you. And that's been part of my reluctance with instant book, because I know I could get a lot more bookings, but and that's where watching you and learning from you has been really helpful, because I haven't been able to get over that fear of instant book, because I'm like, oh, what are we asking for when we do this? And I think I had one instant book in the very beginning, and I was so terrified by it.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Been there. But here's the thing, I felt way more comfortable turning on Instant Book when I put tools in place for me to know who's staying at my property.
Yes, that's what I'm excited about. Is the I'm just not. Maybe it's too much control. I am just not a roll the dice person and hope you get the right person. So that's the part that I love. That there's due diligence, and I come from a word where due diligence is a word we use quite frequently.
Yeah.
So for me, it's okay. Are we doing everything we can? Number one, to ensure the best stay for them. Number two, the best outcome for us. And I
Yes.
don't want to have, every time we get anything less than a 4 or 5, my husband's like, what did we do wrong? I'm like, it's not us, it's them. And it's their interpretation. And if we deserve it, but the cleaning is usually where we fall down on the reviews. And it's because I'm not there. It's, not that I am a perfect housekeeper, but I like the fact that with midterm rentals, I can create a relationship, whether it's illusional or not. I can create that relationship. I can maintain communication. I can take care of things. But when you have short-term rental, I mean, I've even had long-term rentals where I've never met a person.
If you've got a rental, whether it's short term, midterm, or long term, you need a solid insurance policy that's actually made for landlords. I use Steadily because it's fast, digital, and built for real estate investors just like us. No long phone calls, no back and forth, just a clean, modern way to get coverage. You can get a quote in under 2 minutes with Steadily.com. Again, that's Steadily.com, modern insurance for modern hosts. Check out the link below to get your quote today.
They were in my house for 2 years and I never met them. We never needed
Right.
to meet. I live 300 miles away. They paid their rent on time, never any issues, and boom, they're
Yeah.
gone.
I
So
think there's some statistic that says if you spend up to 7 hours with someone, they're considered a friend.
really,
So, in the terms of midterm rentals, you spend time getting to know them, talking to them, interacting with them. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, you're still communicating way more than you would with a long term rental and far more opportunities than with someone in a short term rental. So, I mean, I've made friends, I've gotten clients from my guests, and I really like that part.
I agree. I think for me, like I said, it's just for me, anything less than a 4 or a 5, I kind of take personally. And so those reviews, I use those reviews to troubleshoot, to continually improve, but I'm not using them to value my own self.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, for midterm rentals, it makes so much more sense to me. I used to drive tours in the Black Hills in the summer. And the one thing I loved was that I could establish a relationship with someone in my car for a day, and then I never have to see him again. And I
Yeah.
love that. The biggest thing I think for me though with that relationship piece is just the authenticity of it. I don't want somebody just blowing smoke. I would like, direct communication. And our houses are, some of them are almost 100 years old. They're historic homes. But so we know they're not perfect, but we want to know if there's a problem right off the bat so that we
Yeah.
can take care of it. And like I said, with short-term rentals, they're just like, I'll just leave a bad review.
Hmm.
Long-term rentals, they know they have to let us know, because if there's a gas leak, we need to take care of it. So midterm rentals, like I said, I think it's kind of that middle ground. It's what's reasonable.
So I have a lot of people that are asking me, Vivian, how do you invest in a property and turn it into a midterm rental if you don't live close to it? I'm not brave enough to do that. Most of my properties are within a 15 to 20-minute drive of my personal home. You had mentioned 300 miles. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can offer the audience on how do you become a better host? How do you operationally tighten things up so that you're not feeling like you have to drop everything to go and drive 5 hours to get there?
Right. And sometimes we just do. Sometimes we just do. And it's really, thankfully, my husband and I are good partners that, especially when the kids were little and we couldn't leave them alone. Now, like, oh, we'll see you in 2 days. But when they were little, they had school. So it's okay. Which one of us is going to go down there and take care of business? So sometimes you just have to do that. But number one, more than anything, is you got to have the best contractors on speed dial that you can find. So if you have a plumbing issue, I mean, we've been using with the same plumber for 20 years, and they know when we call, we're going to say, hey, we have an emergency, can you please get there as soon as you can? So contractors, plumbers, electricians in particular, particularly plumbing, my husband hates plumbing, so that is absolutely critical. Some kind of a local point of contact. In my case, I have a second cousin who, I don't know if I've ever met him, but they live in Cheyenne. And his wife has been a stay-at-home mom, and she was just looking for a little bit extra money. So, like, for example, this week we have something called Cheyenne Frontier Days, which is the biggest thing in the state of Wyoming. And I have guests checking in, and they're paying a lot of money for these nights because it is the biggest thing in Wyoming. And so, like, I'm going to order a case of water and some nice coffee and some chocolates and maybe some kind bars, just something to say thank you for choosing our property. But I think you have to find some kind of a local contact that can help you, even if it's just, hey, will you go over and, move the trash can to the curb? I think that's critical. You have to have some kind of person in the community where you're at. But really, for me, it's the communication is my responsibility. My
Yeah.
communication to my guests.
How do you find someone that cares about your business as much as you do from afar away?
That's tricky. I think the biggest thing is we found a realtor in Cheyenne that we really like. He's a good guy, and we've asked him. We're like, hey, can we borrow a ladder? We got to get up and clean the gutters while we're in town. And he brought us, and a lot of it is he's obviously wanting us to list with him at some point, which we had listed. But I think it's just knowing that they understand that this is your business. It's not a hobby. It's not something you do because you enjoy lots of extra work in your life. I think a lot of people have perceptions about particularly people who own a lot of real estate, and I'm like, no, we're the rubber meets the road. We do the work. I mean, there are times that we're not going to touch certain things
Right.
like plumbing, but they need to understand we have skin in the game. We're going to do what we can. They're our assets. That's our value. And we want someone who can jump on board with us and understand that we're just not doing this for fun and money. This is our kids' college fund. This is our retirement fund. We're not
Right.
here to mess around. I'm not here to pay $300 for a set of sheets at my midterm rental or my short term rental. I'm going to do the best that I can, buy the best that I can with the best price possible. But I think it's just in our case, once people understand that we are business people and we take our businesses very seriously, and that includes our concrete design business as well.
Hmm.
We're here to take it seriously. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We like to travel, spend money when we can. We love going to see our children, or my daughter when she will leave. We want to support them. They're both in college athletics. So for me, it's to get people to understand what our values are. Why are we doing this? And either people we've met people that were like, we're not doing this, and we've had to say, sorry, this isn't the right fit. But and I think that it's been cleaners, it's been property managers who give themselves that label. It's been real estate agents. We hook, line, and sinker. We've taken it because we believe in people. But then
Yeah.
after a while, you go, I don't think they're right for us, and we have to agree to it.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on time here, but I wanted to see if you could help us help. I work with a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing. They hear about it, they're not really sure. What advice do you have for someone about, because you had mentioned you're ready to pivot in your real estate journey. You've been doing this since 2004, I think you said.
2006.
2006, and you're ready to start pivoting, but someone that's in their 20s or in their 30s and they're looking to invest in real estate and now you're, pivoting, what advice or what can you tell them about how real estate has changed your life and what should they be prepared for?
Oh my goodness. Vivian, if we had not have started in real estate, we were 27 when we bought our first home. We sold a mobile home that was my parents in Laramie, Wyoming, sold that to get into our first home in Cheyenne. And we never would have dreamed that we would become real estate investors. Never. We were living in a mobile home where literally there was a school bus that was skirted that somebody was living in. And we're like, are we ever going to afford a house? We had to move from Laramie, it's college town, because we couldn't afford a house there. So we moved to Cheyenne where we could afford one. And that was a big sacrifice for us, but it was the best thing we could have done. So for me, because I was in that late 20s, early 30s segment, the number one is just start. I don't care if it's $50 a month. We are aggressive investors. Now we're pivoting our investments into more crypto. So that's something else that we're pivoting on is we did a lot of stock investing. You know what? What we did was we listened to a book called The Motley Fool when we were in our late 20s, and they said find a stock that you love and that's where you start. And that's what we did. So my husband and I looked at within our spending criteria, within our spending habits, where are the places where we spent the most money? And it was Home Depot, Intel, because he was in the IT arena. I think I can't remember what the other. There was four of them. We each picked one, and we said we're going to do $25 a month and see what happens. Well, those grew over time, grew over time, grew over time, and that's what we used on one of our down payments. So you
But
just got
why
to
real
start.
estate? But why real estate? I mean, you could choose between crypto or stock market, but what has real estate specifically done for you?
What it has done for us is you hit the nail on the head when you said $75 a month cash flow, and now you're cash flowing like $500 a month. One of our friends in Cheyenne, her dad had been a real estate, he'd been a landlord for years. And he told us, I don't know, we were probably 29, 30. We weren't really, investors at the time. We were homeowners, but not investors. And he said, if you make $50 a month on any property that you have, you are doing great. And so every single time we would look at a deal, my husband would go, is it at least $50 a month? And that's what we would do. Well, we did exactly what you said, which is over time, we would look at what's the loan to value? How much equity did we have? How much did it appreciate? We'd look at interest rates and then we'd refinance and then we'd pull money out and then we go buy another property. But if
Right.
you don't start, you'll never get there. And that's the point. We are terrified, absolutely terrified, but we started. And
I think
that
it starts with one.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
start with
Don't.
that one, you anchor that.
Yep,
As that appreciates, you start refinancing it because
absolutely.
I mean, the last few years has been a little bit different But in normal circumstances, that property should appreciate in value over 5 years. That's how my parents built their wealth.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
purchased one at a time. They only did one every few years, let it appreciate, pull it out. By then, rent has caught up to the new payment.
Yes.
Just keep pulling it out. Like that's real estate 101. I think if people could just understand that, it is building equity, building wealth without being taxed because you're borrowing money.
Well, and I'll tell you, we're serial entrepreneurs, but I'm also a queen of side hustles. And so one of the things I tell people continually is if you're scared about buying a house that you don't live in, or maybe, I love David Bach and I love his book, The Automatic Millionaire. That changed my life in so many ways. But we did our real estate journey all wrong. And the reason is because we didn't do what he advised, which I think is a great approach, which is you live in a place 2 years, keep it, move to the next one, live there 2 years, keep it, move to the next one. We didn't do that. We just cashed in everything we could possibly find to buy houses that we thought we needed. But I rent my camper as a way of earning revenue. And I've been doing it for years. And it's a great way. If people have a camper and they're not using it, rent it out and then use that money to put in an investment fund for, maybe it's a down payment. There's so many just really great options for people. I think DSCR loans I don't even know what DSCR stands for, but I know what they do.
Debt
And
service
yes, so it's a debt service, what is it, ratio?
coverage ratio.
Yeah. So we just discovered those a couple of years ago. But, interest rates are higher. But if your property looks like it will cash flow, then you can buy a property. And, again, there are so many ways you can get into it. But I think fear is just such a factor for so many people, even investing in stock markets. It's fear.
Yeah.
Fear holds people back. And unfortunately, they miss opportunities because they're letting the fear control them.
Well, I think one thing that really helps us with fear is being a part of a community. And I'm so glad that you've been a part of my community for the last couple of years. So thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom today. And
You're
I
welcome.
can't wait to see how your pivot into commercial goes.
Well, we've got one hanging. We just gotta make the move. So it's totally different than anything we've ever done. So I'll keep you posted. But like I said, it's one of these things that what we've learned about property taxes, what we've learned about local infrastructure, what we've learned about what's happening in the environment, it's all part of it. So I do really, though, if people want to try midterm rentals, I mean, I'm already going to reach out to you for my brother who lives in Houston because they have a house on the market. And it's a great opportunity just through your organization to be able to list for free. And especially with all the floods that are happening in Texas, have happened. It's a great opportunity to help people out that desperately need it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. We're out of time now, but thank you so much for being here. And we'll drop in the notes how people can find you, and we'll see you in the community in Facebook.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate it.
Welcome to the ARC Watchtower. Do you know what the major online travel platforms actually cover? Most hosts don't until it's too late. Payout delays, denied claims, and no protection for direct bookings, midterm stays, or reverse arbitrage setups. That's why there's ARC Watchtower, with up to $50,000 in damage protection and $1 million in liability coverage for every stay on every platform. It's automated, platform agnostic, and built for today's operators, from short-term hosts to mid-term rental pros and reverse arbitrage managers placing insurance or corporate guests. Sign up today in 60 seconds. No forms, no gaps, just real protection.